director and producer Elliot Bonza, whose latest project, Bella's Room, is already stirring hearts. It's a powerful Aussie story with a faith-based heartbeat inspired by real-life experiences of foster kids navigating trauma, hope and healing. Take a listen.
The little girl.
Bella.
Phone call made to police. Bella mentioned something along the lines of, "He's going to kill me."
Would you hold me in your arms?
You taking the guy in?
Can't. No evidence of physical harm to Bella.
I have a temp family she can go to until this all blows over.
And if it doesn't?
Then this 10-year-old will be going into her 9th foster home, won't she?
9th.
Let me go! I have to brush your hair.
She's 10, you said?
Yes. She turned 10 today.
Now, this film isn't just entertainment. Bella's Room is a mission, a story that speaks to identity, restoration, and the power of faith in the darkest places. And today we're diving into the heart behind it, the journey so far, and how you can follow along and support the vision. Elliot, welcome to the show.
Hey, great to be with you, Rochelle. Thanks so much for your time.
Now, let's start with the heart behind this film. What inspired Bella's Room and why did this story need to be told?
It came out at a time of prayer and worship with a friend and mentor of mine, actually, and I had been travelling with some friends who had been fostering for upwards of 25 years, and I'd never considered this idea as a film that would be a commercially viable idea, but from that time of prayer, I was so prompted, and it was weighing on my heart quite heavily to go and write a script based on what we'd experienced in our time of prayer and worship. And essentially I wrote the first draft, second draft, third draft, and finally started getting a crew together to put a proof of concept together.
It's fascinating stuff. Now, I've only seen the trailers so far, but at a personal level as a mum, it already moved me. And I think a lot of people who see this film are going to feel the same way. You've described it as a faith-based Aussie story. How does your own faith shape the way you tell a story like this?
Well, we know God to be the master storyteller. He's told the greatest stories throughout all of history. When we open our Bible, we're opening up a document that is a mastery on story. And so that's very central to my faith and has been since I was a child. I just have always loved movies and always dreamt of making them. And it was just so central to my faith to do something with a story in a way that not just entertains audiences, but brings them into an encounter with the presence of a loving God, with the truth of who he is, who he says they are, and ultimately begin to permeate our entertainment industry here in Australia with family values-centered entertainment that brings them into touch with God who calls them by name.
This is not who you are.
Yeah. Look, I think that a film like this, it ticks all my boxes because not only is it Aussie, it's so exciting to hear that we have committed faith-based filmmakers here in Australia wanting to produce content that, as you said, is not just entertainment, it's meaningful. I think we're so used to seeing America, step up to the plate and do a lot. I'm really excited with the prospect of this happening here down under. Now, Bella's journey, it seems to touch on trauma of being a foster kid, resilience and identity. What do you hope audiences, especially young people, might take away from hearing her story?
Well, the thing is, whilst that's the circumstantial kind of context, being a foster child, being between trauma and redemption is actually it will relate to a very wide audience. I think all of us can relate to times in our lives where we've been between darkness and redemption, and many of the times we've realized the missing key is actually forgiveness that brings freedom in our lives. And Bella is just a beautiful personification and a realistic personification of that journey from being in darkness and feeling like she has every reason to be angry at the world. But then she's presented with the power of the gospel in a very character-driven way, not in a preachy or cheesy way. And it just brings us into contact with the power of Jesus to step into our story and say, you must forgive if you want to be free. And that's her call ultimately in the film, which will relate to a universal audience.
Absolutely. And as I said, the trailer is the only thing out at the moment, but it is powerful already. And this is based on real events, isn't it, Elliot? It's based off a real life situation?
Correct. Well, a number of situations, actually. I had the privilege of being able to sit down with multiple families just to hear their story, hear their journey, because I know that having journeyed with families in this world of caring for children going through foster care, the last thing they needed was a movie to come out that doesn't accurately represent that world and those people. And so I had the privilege to be able to glean from their journeys and begin to embed that into the characters, into the plot, into the way we write the psychology of Bella. And yeah, that's been one of the greatest joys of the process, actually.
And what a beautiful, authentic way to, I guess, do justice to kids, to families who are in the foster care system, to carers who are helping and supporting them, even the support workers whose job it is to find them safe and loving homes. It's a real touch point, I think, and timely for today, where we know the need of foster carers in our community is so vital. Now, Bella's story, she's been in a foster home maybe 9 or so times, but to make this film happen, we all know that films take funds. You guys are currently in the fundraising phase. Can you share with us how those funds raised are going to help to achieve your goal, and how can people actually get involved?
Yeah, it's such a great question. Look, there is so many, reasons funds get spent on a film, and sometimes it's actually not the obvious. So what we're currently doing right now is we're fundraising for production itself. So we're in a pre-production phase right now where we're finalizing casting, and all of this is just done pro bono. So we've got a team of 4 people who have been dedicated to working on this with us. And now I've welcomed a couple of other people who are now mentoring us in the film business side of things, so that we're ensuring distribution's getting lined up before we start shooting day one, because it's entirely impossible to convey the value of it being a financially viable film, so that we can sustainably make more films like it that's going to minister and meet an audience that is out there and hungry for it. So production is our current budget that we're focusing on raising so that we can start shooting. And basically, it's a very expensive venture, but this is what would be considered in the industry a micro-budget film, because as soon as you get under $1 million for a film production, it's in micro-budget landscape. And so at the moment, the goal is $500,000 to cover all of our production. And from there, it's all marketing, distribution, and theatrical release.
Yeah, it's exciting, but a big thing to undertake. And if you're listening and you're interested, we'll give you the details on how to connect with these guys at the end if you do want to become an active part of all of that. Now, Elliot, what has been the most surprising or moving part of the journey so far? I know you've mentioned sitting down with foster families. Are there any moments that have already reminded you why Bella's Room as a story matters so much today?
Yeah, there's been multiple, but one I'd love to major on is how many actors in the casting process, because we've gone through over 200 audition tapes already and narrowed it down to our short list at the moment. And we're doing another casting call for our main character, Bella, just because we want to make sure she's the right fit. But one of the things that have come out that have just moved me as the writer and director is when parents of actors or actors who are, being cast for different older characters in the film have written in and said, oh my gosh, I just realized this is a faith-based project. This is unheard of, and I was about to leave the industry because I lost hope that I could survive and thrive in my faith doing this job. And now I have my hope back, and I feel like there's a space for me to fulfill my talent in a missional way that's going to serve God, serve people, but not make me compromise my values or compromise what I'm willing to do on screen. And so that was a huge one for me. One parent in particular wrote to me and said, this is such a meaningful project for my daughter. We unfortunately we've got an acting coach that wrote to us and told us that we're going to be exploring horror in classes and using witchcraft to help support the portrayal of those kinds of genres. And I was just like undone by that. I'm like, why is this so mainstream now that our kids are being drawn into this engagement with stuff that's so contrary to what they value? So this has been a huge journey of just seeing the landscape, seeing the need, and being able to respond in both a missional way, but also looking at it as a sustainable way of making viable films that are going to actually go places and have an impact.
She's never had anything to look forward to.
Future has always had a question mark over it.
I think she's going to love her future.
Elliot, that is just incredible. I think you've highlighted just how special this project is, and not just from the perspective of seeing, passionate Christians making movies in our own country here in Australia that are faith-based, that do speak to, the glory of Jesus and how he works in our lives, in our brokenness. You're lifting up the foster care community as well, but as you've just pointed out, this has a trickle-on effect when it comes to local film production in Australia, where Christians work in these industries, and it's a hard industry to be in, but to provide an outlet, a place where people can bring their skills and talents in a way that I guess holds integrity for their faith, that is a beautiful gift. And I think that all going well, this is a project that God is going to continue to honour you with his presence as you continue to serve him and think deeply about it. Now, there's so much more we could talk about with this film, but Elliot, for those aspiring Christian creatives who are listening, what advice would you give them about telling bold, faith-filled stories in today's culture?
It's such a good question, because I know that so many filmmakers shy away from putting faith at the forefront and centre simply because of the connotations it brings up. I would encourage them to write a script, get it done, get the draft done, read it with friends, read it with people who are further ahead of you, and get them to give you the most honest, transparent feedback possible to make sure that you're conveying not just the heartbeat of the faith, but also the power of story, because story is so powerful. And the last thing I want to do through my films is have this essence of agenda that we're trying to convince your mind about something, when actually it's the characters that actually relate to people. It's the characters that impact and actually affect transformation in people's lives. And so focus on character, focus on what they want, what they need, focus on refining those drafts. If you're not happy with it, scrunch it up, throw it out, start again, go page 1. And, we've been through 10 drafts now, and I'm still going to be bringing in script editors to elevate it by the time we go into production, because I want every word to matter. And it's really important as writers, especially, that you realize the power of one single word, and therefore you make your words matter. And start the conversation with friends, start the conversation with other collaboratives, and start just getting the conversation going and refine it as you go, and realize we're serving an audience with a story. And if it happens to have a really powerful faith heartbeat that feels relevant and doesn't feel misplaced or forced, it's going to have a powerful impact.
Yeah. That is great advice, and it's so timely for today. Elliot Bosner, writer, director and producer of Bella's Room, thank you so much for sharing just a snippet today of your heart, your vision for this production, and we'll certainly be praying that it really is much more than a film. I know that it's already deeply embedded with a message of hope, of healing, and even divine purpose, and we are absolutely cheering you guys on every step of the way. So thank you for sharing with us today.
Thanks, Rochelle. I really appreciate the space to share about it. And we're also interviewing right now for crew members for production, which will be happening in autumn 2026. So if you are a crew member and you got some experience and you want to put your talent to a faith heartbeat film that's going to have an incredible impact on a universal audience beyond our shores, we'd love to hear from you. And the way you can apply is follow our social media, which is found on our website, bellasroom.com.au, as well as our YouTube channel, which is AS Studios Co. And you'll see there's QR codes there for you to fill in an application form, and would love to hear from you. It's an exciting journey. Let's see what happens.
And if you want to follow along for that journey, learn more, get involved, pray for them, support them, or even give financially, you can head along to Elliot's website. It's bellasroom.com.au. You can listen to the full trailer there. It's amazing. Go online and check it out. And to all of our listeners as well, let this be a reminder that stories really do matter. Your story matters. God is always at work, even in the hardest chapters. And as it says in Isaiah 61:3, he gives us the beauty for ashes, the oil of joy in the morning, and a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair. Keep telling your stories, encouraging one another and sharing. But once again, for all the details on this film project, check out bellasroom.com.au.